By 2025, nearly half of all jobs face a high risk of automation, and the global gig workforce is expected to surpass 1.6 billion people. That might sound like the setup for a sci-fi movie, but economic philosophers saw these challenges coming long before AI and gig apps existed. Today, we're looking at how Adam Smith's theories might get a digital update, why Marx's warnings about wealth inequality seem even more relevant now, and how these ideas could help us avoid becoming obsolete. To make sense of this new reality, it helps to start with the basics of how markets supposedly keep themselves in balance, even when algorithms are calling the shots. Adam Smith's invisible hand gets a smartwatch. Adam Smith's invisible hand described how markets self-regulate as each person pursues their own interests. Today, that invisible hand has a digital upgrade. Instead of merchants and traders setting prices, we now have AI systems, machine learning algorithms that automatically adjust things like Uber fares in real time based on supply, demand, and other data. When you open a ride-hailing app, you're interacting with code, not a person. The market still balances itself, but the process is now driven by software, making thousands of decisions every second. This digital invisible hand is always active. Millisecond trades shape financial markets, with high-frequency trading accounting for about half of equity volume in the US online stores, change prices dozens or even hundreds of times a day. Even local supermarkets use AI to decide what goes on which shelf and how much it should cost. The basic principle Smith described in 1776 is still here, but now the invisible hand wears a smartwatch, tracking economic signals, consumer behavior, and market shifts in real time. The gig economy is a clear example. Platforms like Uber, DoorDash, and TaskRabbit use algorithms to match workers to jobs, set prices, and manage supply and demand. When a rainstorm hits, surge pricing kicks in automatically. More drivers log on, attracted by higher fares, and the system readjusts as conditions change. No one's calling the shots from a control room. The software reacts to live data, keeping the market in balance. This new system brings new challenges for workers. Traditional jobs offered steady wages, but algorithm-driven gig work means income can swing hour by hour. A delivery driver might make $25 an hour during peak dinner times, but struggle to find orders in the afternoon. To earn more, workers need to understand how these platforms operate, tracking patterns, learning when demand spikes, and figuring out which locations offer the best opportunities. It's similar to how day traders watch market trends, except now it's about navigating app notifications and real-time pay rates. The relationship between workers and algorithms is complicated. As more drivers focus on peak hours, the competition increases and average earnings drop. The algorithms then adapt, shifting incentives and changing how jobs are distributed. In some countries like Malaysia, about 70% of gig workers use 2 or more platforms at the same time, playing one algorithm against another to keep their income steady. This constant adjustment creates a feedback loop where platforms and workers are always responding to each other's moves. For consumers, the digital invisible hand means prices aren't fixed. The same product can cost different amounts depending on who's buying, when, and even what device they're using. Airlines have used this approach for years, but now it affects hotel bookings, food delivery, and more. Algorithms factor in everything from your search history to your location, adjusting prices minute by minute. This shift makes the market less transparent. In traditional settings, you could see how prices were set. Now, the rules are hidden inside proprietary algorithms. Platforms rarely explain exactly how their pricing or job allocation works, leaving both workers and consumers in the dark about why they're getting a certain rate or paying a specific price. Understanding these systems is essential. Workers who learn how algorithmic management works can make smarter choices about when to work and which platforms to use. Consumers who know about dynamic pricing can plan purchases for better deals. Even small business owners need to understand basic data trends to stay competitive in a market where AI sets the pace. Smith's insight about self-interest guiding the market still holds, but the mechanisms have changed. The invisible hand hasn't vanished, it's just been reprogrammed, moving faster and with more complexity than ever before. This new landscape sets the stage for even bigger questions about who benefits and who gets left behind. Marx 2, Wealth Inequality in the Age of Tech Billionaires. Marx's critique of capitalism centered on the accumulation of wealth and power in the hands of a few. In today's tech-driven economy, the concentration of wealth has reached levels that even Marx might not have predicted. As of 2024, the top 12 American billionaires control a combined net worth exceeding $2 trillion, their fortunes having grown by 193% since March 2020. Meanwhile, the richest 1% of Americans now own half of all U.S. stocks and mutual funds, up from 40% in 2002. This shift reflects not just rising fortunes at the top, but a growing gap between asset owners and everyone else. Globally, the Gini Index, a measure of wealth inequality, remains high. The United States posted a Gini Index of 39.7 in 2020, while Brazil stood at 52.9 in 2021, signaling deep divides in wealth distribution. In Canada, the top 20% of households held over two-thirds of the country's total net worth in 2024, while the bottom 40% shared less than 3%. These numbers highlight how the benefits of economic growth and technological progress are not evenly distributed, but instead flow upward, reinforcing existing hierarchies. This concentration of wealth translates directly into influence. In the 2024 U.S. elections, 100 billionaire families contributed $2.6 billion, 5% of all political donations. Back in 2000, that figure was only $18 million, or 0.6%. The scale of this change raises questions about how policy is shaped and whose interests are prioritized. Tax codes and regulations increasingly favor those who own capital, not those who earn wages, creating a feedback loop that further entrenches inequality. The nature of economic power has also changed. 19th-century industrialists built their fortunes on steel mills and railroads, employing vast workforces. Today's tech leaders amass wealth through digital infrastructure, cloud platforms, AI models, and global networks, requiring far fewer workers once their systems reach scale. For example, Amazon employs about 1.5 million people worldwide, a large number, but small compared to its $1.7 trillion market cap. By contrast, platforms like Upwork enable millions to freelance globally, contributing to an estimated $1 trillion share of global GDP. Yet the platform itself employs a fraction of the people needed to staff a traditional corporation of similar economic impact. With AI and automation accelerating, the risks to job security extend beyond factory workers to white-collar and creative professions. AI now generates code, designs graphics, and writes copy, consolidating value creation in the hands of those who own the algorithms and data. The result is a system where wealth accumulates rapidly at the top, while many workers face unstable incomes and limited bargaining power. Political and social power are increasingly intertwined with economic clout. Tech platforms mediate everything from news to commerce to relationships, giving their owners unprecedented influence over public life. When a platform changes its algorithm, or a billionaire voices policy opinions online, the effects ripple across societies. This dynamic shifts the balance of power from traditional institutions to individuals and companies that control digital infrastructure. Despite mounting evidence of growing inequality, policy responses remain slow and fragmented. Calls for wealth taxes, stronger labor protections, and antitrust enforcement gain traction, but implementation lags behind the pace of technological change. Understanding the mechanics of this new economic order, rooted in both Marx's analysis and the realities of the digital age, becomes essential for anyone hoping to navigate or challenge it. As the lines blur between economic and political leadership, the question emerges: what happens when those with the most technological power also shape public discourse and policy? Plato's philosopher kings versus modern tech bro kings. Plato imagined a society governed by philosopher kings, leaders who combined wisdom, self-restraint, and a deep sense of public duty. In contrast, the modern landscape features tech billionaires who exert extraordinary influence, not through elected office, but through the platforms they build and control. The transition from philosopher kings to tech bro kings marks a fundamental shift in how power is exercised and justified. Unlike Plato's guardians, who spent decades studying philosophy and ethics, today's tech leaders often rise quickly, propelled by technical skills and entrepreneurial drive. Their decisions shape societies in ways that reach far beyond the digital world. Social media platforms, for example, now function as gatekeepers for public discourse. When a CEO changes an algorithm, it can alter what information billions of people see, which voices are amplified and which are silenced. These choices can have more immediate consequences than many acts of legislation, and they happen with little public debate or oversight. The connection between wealth and power is more visible than ever. According to a recent Pew Research Center survey, a majority across 36 nations view the political influence of the wealthy as a major driver of inequality. In the United States, this is especially pronounced. Billionaire families accounted for 16.5% of all political donations in 2024, up from just 0.6% in 2000. The top 1% now own half of all U.S. stocks and mutual funds, consolidating economic power and reinforcing their ability to shape policy. Tech leaders, with their vast resources and control over information, stand at the forefront of this trend. Plato's ideal rulers lived modestly and prioritized the common good over personal gain. Today's tech elites often accumulate massive fortunes while advancing personal philosophies through public statements, interviews, and social media. Their platforms give these ideas unprecedented reach, regardless of whether they are grounded in careful reasoning or evidence. Sometimes, a single tweet from a tech leader can spark global debates or influence markets. This is a far cry from the slow, deliberate process Plato envisioned for governance. Control over data further distinguishes modern tech rulers from Plato's philosopher kings. Tech companies possess vast troves of real-time information about user behavior, preferences, and networks, far more detailed than anything available to historical rulers. This information asymmetry gives them significant leverage, both in the marketplace and in policy discussions. When lobbying governments, tech companies bring not only financial resources, but also deep knowledge about societal trends and public opinion, making their influence difficult to counterbalance. Workplace dynamics also reveal a sharp contrast. Plato's guardians renounced personal wealth and focused on service. In the tech sector, the wealth gap is widening. The 2025 Global AI Jobs Barometer found that workers with AI skills earn a 56% wage premium, creating a new elite class within the industry. Meanwhile, the collective net worth of America's top tech billionaires has surged, reflecting a system that rewards those who control technology far more than those who simply use it. The pace and scope of decision-making have also changed. Philosopher kings were expected to deliberate carefully, considering the long-term consequences of their actions. Tech leaders, by contrast, can implement sweeping changes with a single product update or policy tweak. A new algorithm or privacy setting can affect millions overnight, often with little warning or input from those affected. This speed can outstrip the ability of traditional institutions to respond or adapt. Checks and balances, a cornerstone of democratic governance, are often absent on major tech platforms. These companies make the rules, enforce them, and adjudicate disputes internally, consolidating power in ways that even Plato might have found troubling. Public accountability is limited. While elected officials face elections and media scrutiny, tech leaders can shape the very platforms where news is distributed and debated. Educational backgrounds also diverge. Plato's rulers underwent years of rigorous study, while many tech leaders leave formal education early to pursue business opportunities. Their philosophies develop through personal experience rather than systematic training, which can lead to innovative approaches, but also to gaps in understanding historical or ethical complexities. The structure of modern finance reinforces these dynamics. With stock ownership highly concentrated, tech leaders are often accountable primarily to wealthy investors, not the broader public. This creates incentives that may conflict with the common good, further distancing today's tech rulers from Plato's vision of selfless, wise leadership. Recognizing these differences is essential for understanding how power operates in the digital age. The influence of tech leaders is not simply a matter of wealth or innovation. It's about how their platforms shape the rules and norms that govern society. As their reach expands, so does the importance of understanding the philosophies, incentives, and structures that guide their decisions. The question of how leaders gain and wield power has always been central to political thought. In today's world, the methods and motivations have evolved, but the underlying dynamics remain. Machiavelli's Playbook for 2025 politicians. Turning to Machiavelli, his advice for rulers to prioritize power and public perception over popularity finds new relevance in the way politicians use social media in 2025. The modern political landscape rewards controversy and emotional impact, echoing Machiavelli's guidance that it is safer to be feared than loved. In this environment, algorithms amplify divisive content, making outrage and scandal far more effective than detailed policy proposals. Outrage algorithms are central to this system. Social media platforms are designed to boost posts that provoke strong reactions, and politicians have adapted by focusing on polarizing issues. According to recent research, political tweets that express outrage receive significantly more engagement than neutral ones. Campaigns carefully monitor these metrics, adjusting their messaging to maximize shares and visibility. The result is a feedback loop. The more extreme the content, the more attention it gets, driving public discourse toward ever sharper divides. Machiavelli understood that controlling perception was key to power. Today, that control is achieved through real-time data and algorithmic amplification. Misinformation campaigns also reflect Machiavellian tactics. Political actors know that misleading claims can spread rapidly, shaping public opinion before corrections can catch up. Studies show that falsehoods travel much faster than accurate information on social platforms. By flooding the digital space with variations of a claim, campaigns make it difficult for fact-checkers to keep up. The objective is not necessarily to persuade, but to overwhelm, creating confusion and doubt. This mirrors Machiavelli's view that rulers should use deception, when necessary, to maintain power. The attention economy has shifted the incentives of political communication. Instead of persuading voters with reasoned arguments, candidates now compete for viral moments and trending hashtags. Success is measured in engagement rates, not policy depth. Media coverage often follows the most provocative content, regardless of its substance. This environment encourages politicians to make statements designed to spark outrage, understanding that controversy translates into influence. Technological advances have made misinformation more sophisticated. Coordinated networks of bots and fake accounts can amplify dubious claims, creating the illusion of widespread support. Deepfakes and manipulated media introduce new challenges, enabling fabricated evidence to sway opinions. The strategy remains the same as in Machiavelli's time: shape public perception by any means necessary, but the tools are now digital and global in reach. These dynamics impact the quality of political discourse. When algorithms reward outrage and spectacle, nuanced debate becomes less visible. Research indicates that substantive policy discussions now make up a small fraction of high-engagement political content. The result is a shift from problem-solving to performative conflict, a development Machiavelli might have anticipated, but which raises concerns for democratic governance. Voter psychology further reinforces these trends. Emotional content is processed and remembered more readily than neutral information, and campaigns exploit this by emphasizing fear-based messaging. Negative ads and targeted scare tactics are more effective at capturing attention and shaping opinions. Algorithms allow these messages to be precisely tailored to specific groups, increasing their impact. Speed also plays a role. Information now spreads globally in minutes, leaving little time for reflection or correction. Politicians must navigate a landscape where every statement is instantly scrutinized, and any misstep can become a viral controversy. Some respond by tightly controlling their messaging, while others embrace the chaos, using constant controversy to stay in the spotlight. Media ecosystems amplify these effects by selectively highlighting content that fits their narrative. Partisan outlets devote more airtime to scandals than to policy, reinforcing polarization. Even local candidates now adopt these tactics, recognizing that a viral moment can outweigh traditional campaigning. Understanding these patterns is crucial for anyone trying to make sense of today's political landscape. Recognizing how outrage and misinformation drive engagement helps explain the heated tone of modern discourse. These are not random developments, but logical outcomes of systems designed to reward certain behaviors. As politics becomes more entangled with technology and emotional manipulation, economic decisions and public policy are shaped in new ways. This sets the stage for examining how economic theories and government interventions adapt to a world where digital influence, rapid information flow, and shifting public sentiment are the norm. Keynes versus crypto bros: economic stimulus in the digital age. Keynesian economics argues that during downturns, governments should step in, spending more and taxing less, to keep demand steady and economies afloat. This approach shaped rescue efforts during the 2008 financial crisis and the COVID-19 pandemic, relying on centralized control over monetary policy and banking. But in today's digital economy, the rise of cryptocurrencies and decentralized finance challenges the assumptions behind traditional stimulus. The global crypto market, valued at over $1.2 trillion, operates outside the reach of central banks. Stablecoins such as USDT and algorithmic DeFi platforms now handle billions in lending and transactions, bypassing the channels policymakers have relied on for decades. When governments send out stimulus payments, a significant portion can end up in digital assets rather than circulating through local businesses. IRS data from the pandemic period shows a notable spike in crypto trading volumes following stimulus distributions. This undermines the Keynesian multiplier effect, where injected funds are meant to boost domestic spending. Traditional stimulus depends on predictable pathways. Governments direct spending, central banks adjust rates, and banks transmit changes to businesses and consumers. Crypto disrupts this process by providing alternative stores of value and new ways to move money instantly, often across borders. During periods of volatility, such as after pandemic stimulus, Bitcoin and other digital assets have surged, sometimes absorbing liquidity that was intended to support Main Street rather than speculative markets. As a result, funds meant for economic relief can fuel asset bubbles or exit the domestic economy entirely. The decentralized nature of crypto also complicates oversight. Unlike banks, decentralized exchanges and crypto wallets don't have the same reporting obligations. Policymakers can't easily track where stimulus money goes once it enters the crypto ecosystem. This opacity makes it harder to measure the real impact of fiscal interventions, especially when capital can move globally at the click of a button. Timing is another issue. Automated trading in crypto markets reacts to policy news in milliseconds, while fiscal stimulus moves at a legislative pace. By the time government checks reach households, traders may have already factored in the additional liquidity, shifting prices in advance. This reduces the effectiveness of policy tools designed for slower-moving financial systems. Labor market data further complicates the picture. The highest-paid gig workers now specialize in AI and blockchain, earning hourly rates far above traditional averages. Many receive compensation in crypto, making their incomes invisible to standard employment statistics. In 2023, U.S. freelancers contributed nearly $1 trillion to GDP, much of it in sectors that operate outside conventional payroll and tax systems. This shift challenges policymakers who rely on outdated labor data when designing stimulus, as they may overlook the segments of the workforce most affected by technological change. Crypto also provides new savings and investment vehicles, especially for younger workers. With some 401(k) providers now offering Bitcoin options, the link between monetary policy and household savings is weaker. Interest rate changes intended to incentivize bank deposits may have less effect when savers prefer digital wallets and decentralized platforms. The philosophical divide is clear. Keynesians see government spending as a stabilizing force, while crypto advocates argue for algorithmic, decentralized alternatives. When crises hit, these perspectives clash. Some point to failed banks as evidence for more regulation. Others see it as a reason to embrace decentralized finance. The lack of a clear playbook for crypto failures, such as the collapse of algorithmic stablecoins, adds uncertainty and risk. As AI and blockchain reshape labor and finance, economic policy struggles to keep pace. Workers in high-demand tech roles can bypass traditional systems entirely, while others face wage stagnation and job insecurity. Stimulus aimed at the median worker may miss those earning the most or those most vulnerable to automation. Navigating this hybrid economy requires rethinking old models. Economic stimulus still matters, but its impact now filters through both banks and blockchain. Policymakers, investors, and workers must adapt to a world where digital assets shape the flow of money and opportunity. This tension between established frameworks and emerging technologies sets the stage for deeper questions about the future of work and the structure of the economy. The gig economy, Smith's dream or Marx's nightmare. As the world of work rapidly evolves, the gig economy stands out as a defining feature of this era. Nearly half of the U.S. workforce now participates in some form of gig work, a shift that raises questions about whether this system embodies Adam Smith's vision of efficient specialization or Karl Marx's warnings about worker vulnerability. For many, gig work means flexibility, autonomy, and access to a wide range of projects. Workers can specialize in their strengths and choose when and how to work. Employers, in turn, benefit from a vast, on-demand talent pool without the long-term commitments of traditional employment. Yet beneath the surface, this flexibility often comes with significant trade-offs. Over half of gig workers lack employer-provided benefits, and only a minority have access to health insurance, paid leave, or retirement plans. Most must navigate private markets or rely on a partner's coverage. Portable benefits, policies that move with workers from job to job, remain rare, though some regions are experimenting with new models. The absence of a safety net highlights attention. While the gig economy offers freedom, it also shifts risk and responsibility onto individuals. Technology, especially artificial intelligence, plays a central role in shaping the gig economy. Platforms use algorithms to assign tasks, set pay rates, and evaluate performance, making decisions that once required human managers. For workers, this means following the directives of automated systems that track metrics like response time and customer ratings. A driver or designer may technically be an independent contractor, but the level of algorithmic oversight can feel as strict as any traditional supervisor. The scope of gig work has also changed. It's no longer limited to ride-hailing or food delivery. Highly skilled professionals in IT, finance, healthcare, and marketing increasingly work on a contract basis, taking on specialized projects for clients around the world. This shift creates opportunities for those with in-demand skills, but it also intensifies competition. A data analyst in one country now competes directly with peers in another, as employers use global platforms to find the best rates. This global reach can drive down wages and create a race to the bottom, especially when algorithms automate hiring and prioritize cost over other factors. Legal definitions have struggled to keep up. Courts and lawmakers debate whether gig workers should be classified as employees, entitled to minimum wage and benefits, or as independent contractors with fewer protections. Some regions have introduced new regulations, granting gig workers access to certain rights, while others maintain the status quo. The result is a patchwork system where workers' protections depend largely on where they live and which platform they use. Payment systems further illustrate the power imbalance. Many platforms hold funds until jobs are completed, control dispute resolution, and can deactivate workers' accounts with little recourse. Binding arbitration clauses often replace the right to collective action or lawsuits, leaving workers with limited options when disagreements arise. AI-driven productivity tools have made gig work more efficient. 95% of independent workers say these tools help them complete tasks faster and manage multiple projects. Still, this efficiency often benefits the platforms more than the workers themselves. Algorithms optimize routes, track every minute, and suggest peak working hours, all while keeping compensation low and competition high. Recent years have seen some progress in worker protections. Portable benefits, minimum wage guarantees, and mental health resources are becoming more common, especially in regions with strong labor advocacy. However, coverage remains inconsistent, and many workers still face instability and stress from constant performance monitoring and shifting platform rules. Understanding the gig economy's contradictions is essential. It offers autonomy and access to global opportunities, but it also exposes workers to the volatility of a market managed by algorithms. The benefits of specialization and flexibility exist alongside insecurity and a lack of traditional protections. For some, the system opens doors to new careers. For others, it creates a cycle of precarious work and downward pressure on wages. These dynamics shape not only individual livelihoods, but also the broader future of work. As more jobs become fragmented and managed by technology, the line between opportunity and exploitation can blur. Recognizing these patterns helps explain the anxieties many workers feel as they navigate an increasingly uncertain employment landscape. Automation anxiety. Luddites were right, sort of. Looking back at the history of work, it's clear that anxiety over automation is nothing new. The Luddites, textile workers in early 19th century England, famously destroyed weaving machines because they feared for their jobs. Their actions were rooted in real concerns. Mechanized looms did displace many skilled workers at the time. Yet, as the Industrial Revolution unfolded, new types of jobs emerged, and the economy adapted over generations. The difference now is the speed and scope of technological change. Today's automation wave, driven by artificial intelligence, doesn't just threaten manual labor, but also encroaches on white-collar and creative professions. Recent research suggests that up to 47% of U.S. jobs could be at high risk of automation by 2030. What sets this period apart from past disruptions is the focus on cognitive work. AI systems review legal documents, analyze medical scans with accuracy rivaling human experts, and generate everything from marketing copy to original music. This expansion into domains once thought safe from automation makes the current wave more unsettling for a broader segment of the workforce. Even the technology sector itself faces upheaval. As companies like Microsoft invest in AI, they are simultaneously reducing their human workforce. Microsoft alone recently announced 15,000 layoffs while ramping up AI development. Software engineers, once considered insulated from automation, now see AI tools like GitHub Copilot writing functional code from simple prompts. Routine IT support and administrative tasks are increasingly handled by chatbots and automated scheduling systems, showing that few roles are immune. The pace of change is another factor. Whereas previous technological shifts played out over decades, today's transitions often occur within a single career. A worker who spent years building expertise in a field can see their role fundamentally altered or even eliminated in a matter of months. For example, telemarketing and bookkeeping are now among the most automatable jobs, with Oxford researchers estimating automation potential at 99% and 98% respectively. Even less obvious roles, such as fashion modeling, are being affected as brands use AI-generated influencers who never step in front of a camera. Historically, workers displaced by new technologies found opportunities in emerging industries, but the rapid advance of AI compresses the timeline for adaptation. Many workers face the challenge of reskilling quickly, often without clear pathways or institutional support. Prompt engineering, AI training, and algorithm auditing are examples of new roles that have appeared almost overnight. These jobs require a mix of technical literacy and human judgment, but the demand for such hybrid skills outpaces the ability of traditional education systems to respond. The pressure on education and training systems is significant. Conventional degrees take years to complete, while the skills needed to work alongside AI evolve much more rapidly. Micro-credentials, continuous learning, and short-term certifications are becoming essential as the half-life of technical knowledge shrinks. Workers must now treat skill development as an ongoing process rather than a one-time achievement. Policy frameworks have not kept up with these shifts. Unemployment insurance, labor laws, and tax codes were designed for a different era and often fail to address the realities of gig work and AI-driven displacement. Workers navigating this new terrain face uncertainty about protections, benefits, and even how their work is classified. The psychological effects of automation risk are real. Workers may experience stress and uncertainty even before job loss occurs. The prospect of obsolescence influences career decisions, leading some to avoid fields with high automation potential. This can create skill shortages in critical areas as industries transform. History shows that technological disruption can eventually create new opportunities, but the transition is rarely smooth. The ATM didn't eliminate bank tellers, but it changed the nature of their work. AI may similarly redefine many roles rather than simply replacing them, but the breadth of its impact is much wider. In this context, the lesson from the Luddites is not to resist change outright, but to recognize the need for adaptation and proactive preparation. Understanding how automation reshapes work is essential for anyone planning their career or thinking about economic policy. While the risks are real, so are the possibilities for new roles and industries. The challenge lies in managing the transition, finding ways for workers to gain relevant skills, updating policies to reflect new realities, and ensuring that the benefits of technological progress are widely shared. As the conversation about economic security and the future of work continues, new ideas for providing stability are moving from the margins to the mainstream. Universal basic income, socialist plot, or capitalist lifeline. Universal basic income, or UBI, has moved from a fringe policy to a mainstream subject of debate, especially as automation and AI reshape the workforce. The core idea is simple: provide everyone with a regular, unconditional cash payment to ensure a basic standard of living, regardless of employment status. This proposal now attracts support from both progressive thinkers and prominent tech entrepreneurs, reflecting a rare convergence of interests. As AI-powered tools threaten to automate a growing share of jobs, potentially replacing over half of tasks in fields like market research and sales, the conversation around UBI has become more urgent. Recent pilot programs provide early evidence on how UBI works in practice. Finland's 2-year experiment gave a random sample of unemployed people a monthly stipend. Recipients reported improved mental well-being and more stable employment compared to a control group. In Stockton, California, a year-long program provided $500 per month to low-income residents. Most of the money went to essentials like food and utilities, challenging the assumption that unconditional cash would be spent irresponsibly. South Korea is moving forward with a phased plan, starting with youth credits to address high unemployment among young adults. These trials focus on whether direct payments can help people weather economic shocks and adapt to rapid changes in the labor market. The economic logic for UBI strengthens as AI adoption accelerates. The World Economic Forum estimates that AI could automate more than half of certain job functions, while McKinsey projects an additional $13 trillion in global economic activity from AI by 2030. As technology companies adopt AI at scale, traditional employment models become less stable. UBI offers a potential safety net, distributing some of the gains from automation more broadly rather than concentrating them among shareholders and executives. One common criticism is that UBI might discourage work. However, evidence from historical and modern trials suggests otherwise. In Manitoba's 1970s Minkum experiment, only a small fraction of recipients reduced their working hours, often to care for family or pursue education. More recent studies show that basic income can help people seek better jobs, invest in training, or start businesses. In today's gig economy, where nearly half of American workers face income volatility, and many lack access to employer benefits, UBI would supplement rather than replace earnings, providing a buffer against unpredictable job markets. Funding UBI remains a central challenge. Proposals range from taxing automation and robots, to redirecting existing welfare budgets, to introducing data dividends, payments from tech companies in exchange for using personal information. Alaska's Permanent Fund, which distributes oil revenue directly to residents, demonstrates that large-scale cash transfers are feasible and can be managed responsibly. Each funding model reflects different views about how wealth should be created and shared in a rapidly changing economy. The pace of automation makes the issue more pressing. Technologies like GPT-4 have reached widespread adoption within months, and AI-driven job displacement is projected to affect millions of workers by 2030. UBI could provide immediate financial stability during transitions, helping people retrain or shift careers as needed. Even under optimistic scenarios, a significant portion of the workforce will need to adapt to new roles, highlighting the need for adaptable support systems. Environmental factors add another layer of complexity. Climate change already imposes significant costs, with extreme weather events causing billions in damages and disrupting livelihoods. Traditional disaster relief often moves slowly, whereas a basic income could deliver rapid assistance directly to affected communities. As economic risks multiply, the appeal of a universal safety net grows. Designing effective UBI systems requires careful attention to local conditions. Payment amounts must be sufficient to provide real security without fueling inflation. Some regions may benefit from targeted programs for specific groups, such as young people or those in high-risk industries. Successful pilots emphasize the importance of calibrating payments to local costs of living and employment realities. Beyond economics, UBI has psychological and social effects. Studies report lower rates of anxiety and depression among recipients, as well as greater willingness to pursue education or entrepreneurial ventures. By reducing the constant stress of financial insecurity, predictable income can help people make longer-term decisions for themselves and their families. Debate over UBI often centers on philosophical questions about work, responsibility, and fairness. Some critics argue that unconditional payments could undermine motivation, while others worry about the cost. However, as automation and climate-related disruptions accelerate, the practical need for new safety nets is becoming harder to ignore. Policymakers are increasingly focused on evidence from real-world experiments rather than abstract arguments. UBI is only one part of a broader reconsideration of how societies share economic risks and rewards. Policies like child tax credits and pandemic stimulus checks have already shown that governments can deliver direct payments quickly and at scale. As the economy faces new sources of volatility, the question is shifting from whether to implement such policies to how best to design them. Ultimately, the debate over UBI is a test of how societies respond to profound economic changes. The details of implementation will reveal priorities and values, whether the benefits of technological progress are widely shared, or whether familiar patterns of inequality persist. As new economic challenges emerge, the question of how to protect people from instability becomes inseparable from how we value the resources we all depend on. Climate economics, when externalities bite back. Climate economics takes center stage when the costs of environmental damage start showing up in national budgets and growth forecasts. For decades, traditional economics treated the environment as an unlimited resource, allowing industries to pollute without paying for the consequences. This approach ignored the true costs, externalities, of activities like dumping waste into rivers or releasing carbon into the atmosphere. Now, with climate change causing tangible economic losses, these hidden costs are impossible to overlook. In Canada, for example, recent analysis projects that climate-driven damages will slow economic growth by $25 billion annually in 2025, amounting to half of the country's expected GDP growth that year. To address these market failures, carbon pricing systems have become a central policy tool. Two main approaches dominate: carbon taxes and cap-and-trade programs. A carbon tax puts a direct price on every ton of emissions, making polluters pay for the harm caused. British Columbia's carbon tax, introduced in 2008, led to a 19% drop in fuel consumption, while the economy continued to grow. Cap-and-trade systems, like the European Union's, set an overall emissions cap and allow companies to buy and sell permits. Since 1990, this system has helped cut emissions from covered sectors by 43%. Both strategies work to internalize environmental costs, ensuring that the price of goods and services reflects their true impact on the planet. Comparing the costs of action versus inaction reveals the stakes. If global temperatures rise by 3 degrees C by 2100, cumulative economic output could drop by 15% to 34%. By contrast, investing just 1% to 2% of GDP in climate mitigation and adaptation could keep damages to 2% to 4% of output. The economic penalty for ignoring climate risks is massive, equivalent to 3 times global healthcare spending, or 8 times what it would take to eradicate extreme poverty. These numbers make clear that failing to price carbon is not just environmentally damaging, but economically short-sighted. Adaptation measures offer practical ways to limit future losses. Using climate-resilient materials for infrastructure, such as roads and bridges, can reduce damage costs by up to 98%. In Canada, this could mean annual savings of $5 billion in the coming decades and up to $13 billion per year by century's end. Early warning systems for extreme weather events provide a tenfold return on investment. These measures function like insurance, reducing the economic shocks that come with a changing climate. Behavioral responses to carbon pricing are well documented. When Sweden introduced carbon taxes in 1991, emissions dropped by 27% while GDP grew by 78%. Industries responded by developing cleaner technologies, and consumers shifted toward greener choices. In Norway, tax incentives for electric vehicles made them cost competitive, leading to a surge in adoption. When environmental costs are reflected in prices, both producers and consumers adjust their decisions accordingly. Despite strong evidence, resistance to carbon pricing remains. Industries that have long benefited from free pollution often lobby against these policies, arguing they raise costs for consumers. However, many systems, like British Columbia's, return carbon tax revenues to households through tax cuts or direct payments. In practice, this can offset cost increases and even leave lower-income households better off, while still reducing emissions. Transitioning away from fossil fuels does present challenges. Workers in affected industries need support and retraining to move into clean energy sectors. Alberta's coal phase-out, for example, included dedicated funding for community transition, helping to maintain employment levels. Careful policy design is necessary to address these concerns and prevent backlash. International coordination is also crucial. Without it, companies may relocate to countries with weaker regulations, undermining progress, a problem known as carbon leakage. Border carbon adjustments, such as those planned by the EU, aim to level the playing field and encourage cleaner production globally. Market-based policies like carbon pricing allow for flexibility and innovation. Rather than mandating specific technologies, these systems let markets find the most cost-effective ways to cut emissions. This approach preserves economic efficiency while achieving environmental goals. Ultimately, climate economics highlights the importance of accounting for environmental costs in every transaction. By making these costs visible, carbon pricing and related policies create incentives for cleaner production and consumption. The next challenge is to ensure that economic frameworks continue to evolve as new forms of value and risk emerge, especially as the economy becomes increasingly digital. Data as the new oil. Who owns the digital means of production? Ownership of economic power has always shaped the structure of society, but today, the most valuable assets aren't found in factories or oil fields. They're in data centers and digital platforms. This shift marks a new era where user data and the algorithms that process it have become the core means of production. Every time someone uses a search engine, streams a video, or orders food online, they generate data that fuels the profits of major tech companies. Unlike industrial workers who exchanged labor for wages, today's data producers receive little more than access to digital services, while their personal information becomes a source of immense corporate value. Tech platforms extract value from data through constant collection and analysis. Each online action, whether a click, a scroll, or a purchase, feeds into detailed behavioral profiles. Companies like Google and Facebook track users across sites and devices, building comprehensive records that are then monetized through targeted advertising and sold to third-party brokers. The average person creates a significant digital footprint every day, yet has no claim to the wealth it generates. Data is traded like a commodity, but users rarely see compensation or even transparency about how their information is used. This digital economy mirrors the dynamics of industrial capitalism in striking ways. In the past, factory owners controlled the machinery and reaped the profits, while most workers had little power over the tools or output of their labor. Today, the largest tech firms, Apple, Microsoft, Alphabet, Amazon, and Meta, have amassed trillions in combined market value by owning the digital infrastructure and the algorithms that turn user data into revenue. The top 1% of Americans now hold half of all stocks and mutual funds, much of it tied to these tech giants, reflecting a concentration of wealth reminiscent of the industrial era's capitalists. Algorithmic management is another defining feature of the digital age. Gig economy platforms use software to allocate jobs, set pay, and monitor performance. For example, ride-hailing apps use dynamic pricing algorithms that adjust fares in real time, while e-commerce warehouses track worker productivity down to the second. These digital systems act as automated supervisors, directing workers' actions and compensation without human intervention. The logic is familiar: maximize efficiency, minimize costs, and keep the system running smoothly, but now it's done through code rather than direct oversight. The value of data is especially clear in the gig economy. The highest-paying freelance roles involve expertise in artificial intelligence and blockchain, with hourly rates that far exceed those in traditional sectors. Workers who can design algorithms or manage digital assets command a premium, while those with outdated skills risk being left behind. This echoes the industrial shift from artisanal crafts to specialized factory labor, but the pace of change is much faster, demanding constant adaptation. Control over data also brings new forms of power and influence. Tech firms know more about individuals' habits and preferences than most governments or traditional institutions. This information asymmetry gives them the ability to shape markets, influence elections, and set the terms of public debate. When a platform changes its algorithm, it can impact entire industries or alter the visibility of political content overnight, often without explanation or recourse. Workers and consumers face new challenges in this environment. Traditional labor organizing relied on negotiating with identifiable management, but today's workers must contend with opaque algorithms that set pay and working conditions. Food delivery drivers, for instance, adapt their strategies to algorithmic incentives rather than bargaining with a human boss. The lack of transparency makes it difficult to organize or advocate for better terms. Policy responses are still catching up. Data privacy regulations vary widely, and most do not address the economic value generated by personal information. Ideas like data dividends, paying users a share of the profits from their data, are gaining attention but remain rare in practice. Without stronger protections or new models of ownership, platforms continue to profit from assets they do not directly compensate. The psychological impact of constant data collection and algorithmic evaluation is also significant. People may alter their online behavior, self-censor, or experience anxiety due to the knowledge that their actions are being monitored and assessed. The pressure to present an ideal digital persona can lead to stress and a sense of vulnerability, distinct from the pressures of industrial work. Understanding the role of data as a primary economic input is essential for navigating the current landscape. Digital literacy, knowing how data is collected, used, and monetized, has become as important as financial literacy was in earlier eras. Those who grasp how algorithms work can sometimes use this knowledge to their advantage, whether by timing work for peak pay or by minimizing exposure to tracking. As new business models emerge, questions about ownership and value distribution will only become more pressing. The struggle over who controls the digital means of production and who benefits from it remains central to debates about fairness and opportunity. The next step is to consider how these dynamics shape what we pay attention to and how platforms turn that attention into profit. The attention economy, selling eyeballs since 2004. In the digital era, the attention economy has emerged as a dominant force, redefining how value is created and exchanged. Since the rise of major social media platforms around 2004, economic principles have shifted from producing physical goods to capturing and monetizing user attention. Where factories once measured productivity in units manufactured, today's online platforms measure success in seconds of engagement and clicks. The raw material isn't metal or fabric, it's human focus, transformed into revenue through targeted advertising and algorithmic curation. Social media platforms operate as attention processors. They collect vast amounts of user behavior data, refine it with algorithms, and sell the resulting engagement to advertisers. Each moment spent on a platform represents a fraction of a cent in advertising value, but when multiplied across billions of users, these moments build the foundations of some of the world's largest companies. The business model prioritizes maximizing engagement, which explains the relentless tweaking of feeds and recommendation engines to keep users scrolling. The mechanics of advertising have evolved alongside this new economy, where traditional ads relied on physical placement, billboards, print, or television. Digital ads compete for attention in real time, with algorithms deciding which ad to show each user based on their data profile. Platforms like Google and Facebook auction off attention in milliseconds, targeting messages with a precision never seen in traditional media. This creates a fiercely competitive landscape, where the value of content is measured not by its substance, but by its ability to hold attention. Content creators navigate these dynamics by optimizing for engagement. Thumbnails, headlines, and formats are crafted to trigger emotional responses and maximize shares. Viral trends and memes spread rapidly, acting as currency in this attention marketplace. The competition is intense, only the most compelling content rises to the top, while less engaging material is quickly buried by algorithms. This system rewards those who understand the rules of the game, often at the expense of nuance and depth. Scarcity defines the attention market. While the supply of digital content has exploded, the amount of attention any individual can give remains fixed. This makes user focus a valuable commodity, driving platforms and creators to ever more sophisticated strategies for capturing it. Personalization algorithms learn from each interaction, refining recommendations to keep users engaged for longer periods. The cycle is self-reinforcing. More engagement generates more data, which in turn fuels more precise targeting. The effects extend beyond individual behavior. The attention economy shapes news consumption, entertainment, and even political discourse. Recommendation systems often amplify extreme or emotionally charged content because it holds attention more effectively, contributing to polarization and echo chambers. The influence of these systems is subtle but pervasive, affecting what information people see and how they interpret the world. Mental health concerns have grown in parallel with these changes. Content creators face pressure to constantly produce and adapt to shifting algorithms, leading to burnout and anxiety. Users report increased distraction, shorter attention spans, and a sense of information overload. Studies link heavy social media use to rising rates of anxiety and depression, especially among younger people. Regulation and policy have struggled to keep pace. Most efforts focus on privacy and data protection, but few address the broader economic incentives that drive platforms to maximize attention capture. Some proposals call for greater transparency in algorithms or limits on data use, but implementation remains uneven and contested. Understanding the attention economy is essential for anyone navigating digital life. Recognizing the techniques used to capture and hold focus, clickbait, endless scroll, personalized feeds, enables more intentional media consumption. Simple steps like curating content, using tools to limit recommendations, or setting boundaries around device use can help reclaim some control over where attention goes. As digital platforms continue to refine their methods for holding attention, the speed and complexity of these systems only increase. The challenge for individuals, creators, and policymakers is to keep up with these rapid changes. The pace at which technology evolves often outstrips the ability of traditional systems to respond, setting up a dynamic where regulation and adaptation are in constant tension. AI regulation: can governments outsmart algorithms? As artificial intelligence becomes more embedded in daily life, the question arises, can governments keep up or even outsmart the algorithms shaping the economy and society? AI systems evolve at speeds that leave legislative processes in the dust. While policymakers debate new rules, AI models iterate and improve in weeks, sometimes days. The European Union's AI Act, for instance, took 3 years to negotiate. During that time, AI capabilities advanced from simple chatbots to systems capable of near-human reasoning. This persistent lag creates gaps where technology outpaces policy, exposing societies to risks before frameworks are in place. Attempts to regulate AI typically fall into 3 categories. The EU has adopted a risk-based system, banning certain uses like social scoring and requiring transparency for high-risk applications. The United States takes a sector-by-sector approach, applying existing rules to healthcare, finance, and other fields. China, meanwhile, enforces ideological alignment, ensuring AI outputs adhere to state values. Each approach faces enforcement challenges, since AI models can rapidly update and adapt, sometimes beyond the scope of the original regulations. In the US, the White House has secured voluntary commitments from dozens of tech companies to prioritize responsible AI development. These pledges include measures like security testing, watermarking AI-generated content, and monitoring social impacts. Yet these agreements are non-binding and often give way to market pressures. Surveys show that most businesses still prioritize speed over safety, racing to deploy new AI features before competitors do. Without legal accountability, voluntary standards can only go so far. The impact on the workforce adds another layer. Recent data from Lightcast indicates that AI-driven automation has already contributed to tens of thousands of layoffs in the tech industry. Traditional labor laws were designed for human managers, not algorithms making automated decisions about hiring or firing. As a result, worker protections lag behind, with automated systems sometimes terminating contracts or reducing hours based on opaque performance metrics. This shift leaves many workers navigating a system where their livelihoods depend on the decisions of software rather than people. Cybersecurity and ethical concerns further complicate regulation. Companies worry about AI model theft, manipulation, and misuse. Malicious actors can exploit vulnerabilities faster than regulators can respond, creating an ongoing cat-and-mouse game. Meanwhile, ethical guidelines are difficult to enforce. When AI systems make mistakes, such as generating biased hiring recommendations or hallucinating facts in legal contexts, it's often unclear who is responsible: the developer, the user, or the data provider. Existing legal frameworks struggle to assign accountability for errors that emerge from complex, self-learning systems. Transparency requirements run into technical limitations. Many advanced AI models operate as black boxes, detecting patterns and making decisions in ways even their creators can't fully explain. Regulatory demands for interpretability often clash with the reality that these systems are designed to exceed human comprehension, making it hard to provide meaningful oversight. Jurisdictional issues also arise, as AI operates across borders and in the cloud. An AI tool developed in one country, hosted in another, and used globally can create enforcement headaches. Questions about which laws apply and who has authority remain unresolved, especially as companies seek out the most favorable regulatory environments. Economic considerations are at the center of the debate. As AI drives productivity and profits, there are calls for new frameworks to ensure the benefits are broadly shared. Ideas like robot taxes or data dividends have been floated, but without international coordination, these remain mostly theoretical. National regulators often hesitate to impose strict rules for fear of losing investment to more permissive jurisdictions. Efforts to protect children and vulnerable groups highlight how reactive policy can be. Schools may ban AI tools to prevent cheating, only to later integrate them as educational aids. This pattern of restriction followed by adaptation reflects the challenge of keeping up with rapid technological change. Military uses of AI present significant risks. Autonomous weapons and surveillance systems evolve faster than arms control agreements can adapt, raising concerns about global security and accountability. Even as defense departments issue ethical guidelines, research and development in AI weaponry continues at a rapid pace. To address these challenges, some propose treating advanced AI like nuclear technology, with international oversight and licensing. Others suggest adaptive regulations that update automatically as AI capabilities evolve. Market-based solutions, such as insurance models and liability frameworks, may also help align incentives with public safety when direct oversight falls short. Public understanding of AI is increasingly important. As people become more aware of AI's capabilities and risks, they can demand greater transparency and ethical standards from both companies and governments. Informed citizens may reject irresponsible applications faster than laws can be written, shaping norms from the ground up. The core challenge is that current governance systems assume predictable, human-like actors, while AI operates according to different logics and incentives. Effective regulation won't come from outsmarting algorithms, but from steering their development toward outcomes that align with human interests. This requires updating not just laws, but also our concepts of responsibility and control. As governments grapple with how to guide AI's rapid evolution, the broader question emerges: does more advanced technology always guarantee better outcomes for society? The productivity paradox: more tech, less growth. The idea that more technology should automatically lead to faster economic growth seems intuitive, yet the reality is more complicated. This is the heart of the productivity paradox, a phenomenon where major technological advances, especially in digital tools and AI, haven't delivered the broad productivity gains that earlier innovations did. While inventions like the washing machine freed up hours of manual labor and directly boosted economic output, the impact of smartphones, social media, and even early AI has been less clear-cut. This paradox is central to understanding what technology can and cannot do for economic growth. Historical data shows the disconnect. From 1940 to 1970, labor productivity in advanced economies grew at an average rate of 2.8% per year. Since 2010, that figure has dropped to about 1.4%, despite an explosion of digital technologies. While the internet transformed how we communicate and work, it hasn't produced an economic leap comparable to electrification or the spread of automobiles. One reason is that many digital tools are designed for consumption rather than production. Hours spent on social media or streaming services don't translate directly into higher output. They often replace other activities rather than add new value. Another factor is the lag between technological potential and actual implementation. When electricity first became available, it took decades for businesses to reorganize their operations to take full advantage of it. The same pattern holds for digital tools and AI. Many organizations still use new technologies to replicate old processes instead of redesigning workflows to fit the new capabilities. This slow adaptation limits the immediate impact on productivity. Measurement also complicates the picture. Traditional productivity metrics are built for tangible goods and services. They struggle to capture the value of free digital tools, like search engines, video calls, or collaborative platforms that enhance efficiency but don't show up directly in GDP calculations. As a result, some productivity gains may be real but invisible in the data. Looking closer, the benefits of AI and digital tools are concentrated in specific sectors and among a small group of firms. PwC's 2025 Global AI Jobs Barometer found that industries most exposed to AI have seen revenue per worker grow 3 times faster than others, and wages rising twice as quickly. However, these gains are not evenly distributed. Just a small fraction of firms capture the majority of measurable benefits, while most see only modest improvements. This uneven distribution pulls down the average, making the overall impact seem smaller than it is for leading adopters. Skill gaps further limit the reach of new technologies. Workers with AI expertise now command a 56% wage premium, but the supply of such skills remains limited. Many companies invest in AI without the staff needed to deploy it effectively. Unlike earlier technologies that required basic training, today's digital tools often demand specialized knowledge that takes time to develop and spread through the workforce. Hidden costs also play a role. Employees spend a significant portion of their time managing technology, dealing with updates, troubleshooting, and cybersecurity. Communication tools have made it easier to coordinate, but they have also increased the number of meetings and messages, sometimes reducing time spent on core tasks. These factors can offset the productivity gains from new technology. Organizational inertia is another barrier. Many workplaces still mirror the structures of the industrial era, layering digital tools onto old processes rather than rethinking how work is organized. This slows the diffusion of technology's benefits. The history of electrification shows that productivity only surged when businesses redesigned their entire systems around the new technology, a lesson that remains relevant today. Finally, attention economics shapes how digital tools affect productivity. While industrial machines freed up time for more work, smartphones and apps often divert attention to consumption and micro-interruptions. The average person checks their phone dozens of times a day, fragmenting focus and reducing the time available for sustained, productive activity. Understanding the productivity paradox helps set realistic expectations for what digital technology and AI can achieve. The impact of these tools depends not just on their technical capabilities, but on how they are implemented, who has access to the necessary skills, and how organizations adapt. While certain sectors may experience rapid gains, broader economic transformation takes time, complementary investments, and systemic change. As technology continues to reshape the workplace, the question is not just how much more productive we can become, but what happens when the nature of work itself begins to change. Post-work futures, when robots do everything. As automation advances, the prospect of a post-work future, where robots and AI systems handle most traditional jobs, becomes less speculative and more pressing. Economists and policymakers are increasingly asking how society might function if the majority of people are no longer needed for paid employment. This scenario challenges long-held assumptions about the role of work in structuring daily life, distributing income, and shaping personal identity. Universal Basic Income, UBI, is the most prominent policy proposal for a world with less work. By providing regular, unconditional payments to all citizens, UBI aims to decouple survival from employment and offer a safety net as automation expands. Experiments in Finland and Stockton, California have shown that recipients report improved well-being and use the payments for essentials, with little evidence of widespread reduction in work effort. Some proposals suggest funding UBI through mechanisms like data dividends or taxing companies that replace human labor with machines. Each approach has practical trade-offs, from how to define taxable automation to how to value personal information. The idea of a leisure society, where people are free to pursue personal growth, creativity, or community involvement, has a long history but remains difficult to imagine in practice. For generations, self-worth has been closely tied to work. The cultural shift required to separate identity from occupation may be as challenging as the economic transition itself. Even as jobs disappear for reasons beyond individual control, unemployment often carries stigma, and existing social systems are built around the expectation of wage labor. Alternative frameworks have been proposed to address these changes. Participatory economics and resource-based models focus on democratic decision-making and managing abundance, rather than relying on traditional job markets. These ideas remain largely theoretical, but are gaining attention as automation progresses. The underlying challenge is to redefine value and contribution in ways that don't depend on employment status. Not all jobs will vanish at once. Some roles will disappear, others will evolve, and new ones will emerge that we can't yet predict. Data from PwC's 2025 Global AI Jobs Barometer shows that workers with AI skills now earn a 56% wage premium, highlighting a growing divide between those who can work alongside technology and those at risk of being left behind. This transition creates a risk of increased inequality unless proactive measures, like upskilling programs and inclusive economic policies, are put in place. Education systems face mounting pressure to adapt. Traditional degrees may lose relevance as the labor market shifts rapidly. Lifelong learning, micro-credentials, and skill stacking become more valuable, with emphasis on both technical abilities and human skills such as creativity, empathy, and problem-solving, qualities that remain difficult for machines to replicate. Beyond economics, the psychological impact of a post-work society is significant. Studies suggest that even with financial security, people struggle to find purpose and structure without work. Societies may need to develop new rituals, institutions, and measures of success, shifting focus from GDP or hours work to indicators like health, education, and life satisfaction. Bhutan's Gross National Happiness Index is one example of an alternative metric, though it has its own limitations. Implementing new systems will require careful navigation. Funding UBI or similar programs demands political consensus, and redefining tax bases to account for automation or data value is complex. Pension and healthcare systems tied to employment would need to be reimagined. The transition will likely be gradual, with periods of overlap between old and new models, and cultural differences will shape how each society adapts. Policy choices made today will influence the direction of post-work futures. Investing in adaptable education, supporting research into alternative economic models, and maintaining responsive democratic institutions can help societies navigate uncertainty. Individuals can prepare by diversifying their skills and building social networks, while staying informed about policy debates and technological trends. Ultimately, the shift toward a post-work future is not just an economic question, but a cultural one. As automation frees up human time, societies will need to rethink how meaning, status, and contribution are defined. The challenge is to ensure that this transition expands opportunity and well-being, rather than deepening inequality or eroding social cohesion. As the economic landscape changes, new forms of value and influence are emerging. In a world where traditional jobs may decline, reputation and social capital are starting to play a central role in shaping opportunity. The reputation economy, your followers as currency. Online reputation has become a measurable asset, shaping economic outcomes in ways that traditional credentials never could. The reputation economy is built on the idea that your digital presence, followers, engagement, reviews, directly influences what opportunities come your way and how much you can earn. This shift is visible across industries, from creative freelancers to professionals in law, medicine, and academia. On social platforms, followers and engagement rates are more than vanity metrics. They are the currency of influence. Brands and employers now evaluate not only the size of an audience, but also how actively that audience participates. A creator with a smaller but highly engaged following often earns more from sponsorships than someone with a larger but passive audience. Platforms like Instagram and YouTube have built entire business models around these dynamics. with influencer marketing projected to reach $85 billion per year by 2025. Companies comb through analytics, looking for creators whose reputation aligns with their brand values and target demographics. For gig workers and freelancers, personal branding is essential. A well-crafted profile on Upwork or Fiverr, complete with strong client reviews and a portfolio of completed projects, can dramatically increase the chances of landing new work. Data from Upwork shows that freelancers with detailed profiles receive more than twice as many job invitations as those with sparse information. This reliance on digital reputation extends to nearly half of the U.S. workforce, as gig work becomes a primary or supplemental source of income for millions. Reputation economies vary by platform and industry. LinkedIn emphasizes endorsements and recommendations, while Fiverr relies on seller ratings. YouTube, Twitch, and other content-focused platforms reward creators for maintaining high engagement and consistent output. Even in traditional fields, digital presence is increasingly important. Doctors who share medical advice online attract more patients, and academics who engage on social media see a measurable increase in citation rates. These trends show that reputation, once built slowly through word of mouth, now grows quickly through digital networks. Employers and clients use online reputation as a screening tool. Over 90% of companies check social media profiles during hiring, often using AI tools to scan for both red flags and positive signals. This means a candidate's digital footprint can influence hiring decisions as much as their resume. Some universities have responded by offering courses in digital branding, recognizing that students need to understand how to manage their reputations from an early age. Earnings in the reputation economy reflect the value of online influence. Mid-level influencers routinely earn several $1,000s per month from brand partnerships, while successful content creators can generate six-figure incomes through ad revenue, sponsorships, and merchandise. This income often matches or exceeds what small business owners earn after years of building a client base. The financial incentives drive individuals to invest significant time and energy in cultivating their digital personas. However, the pressure to maintain and grow an online reputation is significant. Content creators face burnout from the constant demand for fresh material and the need to keep engagement high. Studies indicate that over half of full-time creators experience anxiety related to performance metrics and audience retention. The psychological burden of managing multiple online identities, responding to feedback, and staying relevant is a growing concern. Manipulation and fraud are persistent challenges. Fake followers, purchased reviews, and engagement schemes can inflate reputations artificially, making it harder for brands and clients to distinguish genuine influence from manufactured numbers. Platforms respond by updating algorithms and introducing verification systems, but the cat-and-mouse dynamic continues. Offline reputation still matters, especially in local businesses and professions built on personal relationships. Yet as more economic activity moves online, even those who rely on traditional networks find themselves needing to maintain a digital presence. Balancing these demands requires strategic choices about which platforms to prioritize and how to present oneself to different audiences. Managing reputation is now a long-term project. Consistency in messaging, regular engagement, and careful curation of content are necessary for building trust and sustaining opportunities. Short-term tactics may provide rapid growth, but sustained success comes from developing a recognizable and reliable personal brand. As digital platforms continue to expand, the mechanisms for measuring and monetizing reputation will evolve. New tools, such as AI-driven trust scores or blockchain-based credentialing, may standardize reputation in ways that further integrate it into economic life. For individuals and businesses, understanding how reputation operates as a form of capital is increasingly important. The growing influence of digital reputation is not limited by geography. Remote work and global platforms have made it possible for individuals to access opportunities far beyond their local markets, often competing internationally based on their online presence. As people and organizations navigate this new landscape, the boundaries between local and global reputations are becoming less distinct, setting the stage for broader changes in how work and opportunity flow across borders. Globalization 2: Digital Borders, Physical Challenges. As digital work becomes more common, the boundaries between local and global labor markets are shifting in unexpected ways. Globalization 2 is defined not just by the flow of goods and capital, but by the movement of work itself, often digitally, rarely physically. A software engineer in Lagos can now contribute to a project for a Berlin-based startup without ever leaving home, while a designer in Buenos Aires might build a client base in Tokyo, London, and New York. This new reality, driven by remote work and gig platforms, has made digital borders more permeable even as physical barriers remain firmly in place. By 2025, more than 1.6 billion people are expected to participate in the global gig economy, representing 12% of the world's workforce. Platforms like Upwork and Fiverr connect talent across continents, allowing companies to access specialized skills and workers to tap into higher-paying markets. The appeal for workers is clear: better income potential, more flexibility, and increased autonomy. For employers, the advantages include access to a broader talent pool and the ability to manage costs by hiring in regions with lower wages. The integration of AI tools further boosts productivity, with 95% of independent workers reporting greater efficiency and creative output thanks to automation. Yet this digital mobility collides with the realities of physical borders and outdated legal frameworks. Immigration policies still operate on the assumption that work is tied to a specific location. While a programmer can collaborate with teams around the world, securing a visa to physically join those teams remains a challenge. Digital nomad visas are a step forward, but they are exceptions rather than the rule, and most immigration systems have not caught up with the notion of location-independent work. Legal complexities extend beyond visas. Tax authorities need to determine where work is performed for proper taxation, but a remote worker may serve clients in multiple countries without a fixed residence. Labor laws differ widely, especially regarding worker classification and benefits, creating a patchwork of obligations that both workers and employers must navigate. Payment systems, too, present obstacles. Not all countries support seamless international transfers, and currency fluctuations can erode earnings. Cultural and logistical barriers add another layer. Time zone differences complicate real-time collaboration, and cultural expectations about communication or deadlines can lead to misunderstandings. Specialized platforms are emerging to address these issues, tailoring services to specific industries or regions, and offering compliance tools for contracts and payments. However, these solutions remain fragmented, and no universal system exists to make global digital work truly seamless. Ethical questions arise as well. Wage disparities between countries mean that the same work can command vastly different pay depending on the worker's location. While a $20 hourly wage may be attractive in one country, it would not meet legal standards in another. This raises questions about fair compensation and the responsibilities of employers in a borderless labor market. The physical-digital divide also affects which types of work can participate in globalization. Knowledge workers, those in IT, design, marketing, and finance, can integrate into international teams with relative ease, while service and trade workers remain tied to specific locations. This divide risks deepening economic inequalities, as opportunities expand for some but remain inaccessible for others. Corporate strategies are adapting to this landscape. Businesses increasingly blend full-time staff with contract workers, forming hybrid teams that span borders. This approach offers flexibility, but also blurs lines around benefits, job security, and career development. Workers must learn to navigate shifting expectations and uncertain standards, often without the protections that come with traditional employment. Technology continues to evolve, with agentic AI systems now capable of handling complex multi-step tasks. These advances enable more sophisticated remote collaborations, but they also introduce new questions about accountability and legal responsibility when work crosses jurisdictions. A single project may involve contributors from multiple countries, each subject to different laws and standards. Climate and policy decisions add further complications. Regulatory changes, like ignoring climate-related economic damage in official calculations, can have ripple effects, especially for remote workers in regions vulnerable to extreme weather. Disruptions caused by storms, fires, or floods may impact livelihoods in ways that clients and employers in other countries never experience directly. In this environment, success depends on understanding both the opportunities and constraints of global digital work. Workers who develop in-demand hybrid skills, stay informed about regional regulations, and choose the right platforms can better position themselves in the evolving market. Businesses that invest in compliance, communication, and fair compensation will be better equipped to build sustainable, diverse teams. As the digital economy expands, the challenge is not just to keep up with technological change, but to adapt the systems that support work and learning. The next question is how education can prepare people for a world where skills, rather than geography, determine access to opportunity. The education disruption, learning in the age of AI. The education landscape is undergoing a fundamental transformation as artificial intelligence and automation reshape the way skills are acquired and applied. The traditional approach, study for a set number of years, then rely on those credentials for decades, no longer matches the pace of change in the workplace. Skills can become outdated within months, and the expectation is now for workers to engage in continuous learning to remain relevant. College degrees still hold value, but they are no longer a guarantee of long-term employability. Instead, education is shifting toward a model where ongoing skill development is an integral part of every career. AI-driven learning tools are at the forefront of this disruption. Unlike standard classroom instruction, adaptive AI tutors assess individual strengths and weaknesses, offering customized lessons that evolve as job requirements shift. These systems can recommend when to refresh specific knowledge areas, track progress, and even identify emerging trends in the labor market. For example, a marketing professional might receive prompts to learn about new developments in AI-generated content or data privacy regulations, as these topics become more important for employers. This approach turns learning into a dynamic, responsive process rather than a fixed curriculum. Microcredentials and targeted certifications are becoming increasingly important as the workforce fragments into specialized roles. Online platforms offer courses in everything from blockchain to machine learning, allowing workers to quickly gain and verify skills that are in immediate demand. Employers are responding by valuing these credentials alongside, or even instead of, traditional degrees. The rise in freelancers with postgraduate qualifications, who also pursue microcredentials, highlights a trend toward portfolio-based education. Individuals curate their own set of competencies to adapt to shifting job opportunities. The gig economy amplifies these changes, with nearly half of Gen Z and millennial professionals now working as freelancers, and the global gig workforce exceeding 1.6 billion people. Adaptability is essential. AI platforms match workers to projects based on precise skill sets, so a detailed and frequently updated profile can be as important as any formal qualification. Graphic designers learn new software, data analysts pick up coding languages, and writers master SEO techniques in response to real-time market signals. Education becomes a series of small, strategic investments, often made in response to immediate job prospects rather than long-term plans. Financial models for education are evolving as well. Instead of paying large sums up front for traditional degrees, many workers now invest in ongoing incremental learning. Some platforms offer income share agreements, where payment for training is tied to future earnings, aligning the cost of education more closely with its real-world benefits. This model creates incentives for training providers to keep content current and focused on skills that lead to employment. The psychological demands of continuous learning differ from the old system. Rather than aiming for a single milestone, workers must find motivation in steady progress and regular skill updates. Some thrive on this challenge, while others find the lack of clear endpoints disorienting. Gamified elements, badges, progress bars, and leaderboards help sustain engagement, but long-term success depends on developing habits of daily learning and skill maintenance. Employers are adapting their expectations, too. Job descriptions increasingly focus on specific competencies rather than formal credentials. Hiring processes rely on practical assessments, work samples, and simulations rather than transcripts. Performance evaluations center on outcomes and adaptability. This benefits those who can demonstrate relevant skills, but it also increases pressure to keep learning, regardless of experience or age. Educational inequality is taking new forms in this environment. Those with strong digital literacy and self-motivation are better equipped to navigate the continuous learning model. Others, lacking structure or support, may struggle to keep pace. While AI mentors and guided learning paths offer some assistance, not everyone benefits equally from these tools. The gap between those who can manage their own learning and those who cannot may widen further. The most critical skill in this new landscape is the ability to learn efficiently and adaptively. Techniques such as spaced repetition, contextual learning, and skill stacking become essential. Success depends less on memorizing facts and more on understanding how to acquire and apply new knowledge as circumstances change. Educational institutions are under pressure to adapt as well. Universities are experimenting with modular programs that allow learners to build degrees over time. Companies are embedding learning into the flow of work, shifting from occasional training sessions to ongoing development. Even secondary schools are introducing AI-driven career guidance to help students make informed choices based on labor market trends. The boundary between education and work is becoming increasingly porous. This evolving system brings both freedom and responsibility. workers have more control over their educational paths, but they also bear greater responsibility for staying employable. The old safety net of static credentials is disappearing, replaced by the need for constant reinvention. Those who embrace this reality can thrive, while those who resist risk being left behind. Adapting to this environment requires more than technical proficiency. As the pace of change accelerates, the ability to think critically about what to learn, why it matters, and how it fits into broader systems becomes increasingly valuable. This mindset, rooted in philosophical inquiry, is becoming essential, not just for navigating careers, but for making sense of a world in flux. Philosophy as survival skill: why 2025 demands thinkers. In 2025, philosophy has become a practical tool for survival, not just a subject for debate. As AI and automation transform economies and workplaces, the ability to question assumptions, analyze systems, and understand underlying principles is more important than ever. Workers who can see the larger context, how economic forces, technological changes, and political decisions interact, are better equipped to adapt and make informed choices. The rise of agentic AI, capable of handling complex tasks without step-by-step guidance, means that routine skills are no longer enough. Human value now lies in judgment, ethical reasoning, and the ability to interpret data within broader frameworks. Those who combine technical ability with philosophical thinking, who can ask not just how a system works, but why it operates as it does, find themselves in high demand. According to recent data, workers with AI skills and systems understanding are commanding wage premiums, indicating that employers value people who can bridge technology and strategy. Understanding economic philosophy helps individuals anticipate change rather than react to it. When automation threatens certain roles or new business models emerge, those with a grasp of foundational ideas, like Adam Smith's market dynamics or Marx's critiques of power, can recognize patterns and predict consequences. This perspective allows for more strategic decisions, whether choosing which skills to develop, how to negotiate compensation, or when to pivot careers. Climate change is another area where philosophical thinking becomes essential. Economic models show that the costs of inaction are immense, but decisions about mitigation and adaptation require ethical judgment about responsibility across generations and regions. Workers and leaders who understand these ethical dimensions are better prepared to advocate for policies that balance immediate needs with long-term consequences. They can participate meaningfully in debates about resource allocation, environmental justice, and the distribution of costs and benefits. The power structures of the digital age also benefit from philosophical scrutiny. As tech platforms and AI systems gain influence, it becomes harder to distinguish genuine leadership from mere performance. Recognizing how digital platforms concentrate power and understanding the incentives that shape their decisions helps citizens and workers navigate environments where traditional accountability is often lacking. This awareness is crucial for making informed choices about privacy, data ownership, and participation in digital economies. In the workplace, philosophical skills support better decision-making about technology. Employees must assess whether automation is serving human interests or simply maximizing profit. They need to question whether new systems promote well-being or introduce new forms of control. Those who can raise these questions constructively help organizations align technology with broader values, rather than simply accepting every new tool as progress. Continuous learning also benefits from a philosophical approach. Rather than chasing every new credential, workers can evaluate which skills truly matter for their goals and how education fits into their broader development. This mindset helps avoid distractions and focus on learning that supports long-term adaptability. Political engagement gains depth when informed by philosophical thinking. Instead of reacting to every controversy, individuals can analyze the structures and incentives that drive policy debates. They become more effective participants in democratic processes, able to distinguish between surface-level arguments and the deeper issues at stake. Economic literacy, grounded in philosophy, becomes a form of protection. Understanding how wealth is created and distributed, or how attention and data are monetized, helps individuals make smarter choices about work, investment, and privacy. These are not abstract concerns. They shape daily life in a world where digital platforms and algorithms mediate so much of our experience. As technology accelerates and uncertainty grows, the need for clear frameworks and ethical reasoning becomes more urgent. Philosophy offers tools for evaluating new developments, weighing trade-offs, and making decisions that align with personal and collective values. Those who practice this kind of thinking are not just more resilient, they are better positioned to influence how technology and society evolve. This approach does not require academic expertise. It is about cultivating habits of questioning, seeking diverse perspectives, and connecting immediate choices to larger systems. In a world where change is constant and complexity is the norm, these habits provide stability and direction. As we move forward, the importance of economic philosophy becomes clearer. It is not just a subject for specialists, but a resource for anyone navigating the uncertainties of the present. The ability to think critically about systems, ethics, and long-term outcomes is a practical necessity. This perspective helps individuals shape the changes around them, rather than simply reacting to events. It equips people with the mental tools needed to make sense of disruption and to act with intention in the face of uncertainty. With these skills, workers and citizens are not just surviving the challenges of 2025, they are actively shaping the future. The next step is to see how these ideas become part of our everyday toolkit, guiding choices and building resilience in a rapidly changing world. As we look at the challenges ahead in 2025, economic philosophy stands out as a practical tool for making sense of rapid change. Understanding these frameworks helps individuals recognize patterns in technology, policy, and society, whether it's AI transforming industries or climate policy reshaping economies. Those who approach these shifts with a critical mindset can anticipate changes rather than simply react to them. Adapting to new realities means more than keeping up with technical skills. Lifelong learning, ethical reasoning, and strategic adaptability are essential for navigating uncertainty. By applying these philosophical approaches, individuals can make informed choices and contribute thoughtfully to shaping the future. If you found this perspective useful, consider subscribing for more content on practical philosophy and economic insight.